Hey everybody. We've been doing a lot of work with percents in class lately. Tonight we're going to take a look at one of the most consequential areas where we're going to see percents, which is when we're dealing with interest, which is something we have to deal with anytime we either invest or save or borrow money. Before we learn how to calculate interest, we got to go over some key vocabulary terms. When we're talking about interest, we're talking about the amount of money paid or received for the use of money. So if I put my money in a bank in a savings account, they pay me interest for having that money there because then that's money that they use to do other things. Same thing if I borrow money to buy a car or buy a house, I pay interest on that money that I'm using. The principal is the original amount of money that we either deposit or borrow. So whatever money I borrow to pay for college, that's the principal. Or if I put money into a savings account, we also call that the principal. Now, there's lots of different types of interest, and each type of interest has a different way of calculating it. The type of interest we're talking about today is called simple interest. Simple interest is when we just calculate the amount of money you either pay or receive in interest based off of the principal. So we only calculate this money based on the original amount. Sometimes with other different types of interest, there are other things that come into account when we're doing those calculations. But in this case, we are just calculating it off of whatever we initially either deposit or borrow. The interest rate is actually the percent of principal earned or paid per year. So that's going to tell us how much of our principal do we actually have to add on to the original amount every year. And the balance is when we take the interest and we add it to the principal. We take how much extra money we're getting from the interest and we combine that with the principal, and the balance is like the total. To calculate simple interest, we just need this information here in the box at the bottom. To calculate the simple interest I, we just have to find the product of the principal P. Remember, that's how much money we put in originally or we borrowed originally. We need to know the interest rate, written as a decimal, and we need to know how long we're actually earning the interest for. If we know the principal, the rate, and the time, we just multiply those three together to get the interest here. So for instance, if our principal is $500, if we put that into a savings account and we get 6% simple annual interest for 4 years, to calculate the interest, all we have to do is multiply the principal by the rate. Notice we wrote this 6% as a decimal, 0.06, and then times the number of years. And if we do that, we find that the interest is $120. So the balance would be $500 plus $120, and the total would be $620. Let's take a look at a few examples. In our first example, Tim's parents lend Tim $100 so he can buy a radio-controlled airplane. They charged him 5% simple annual interest. What will be the total amount that Tim will owe his parents in 1 year? So to find that, we are going to use our simple interest formula that we saw on the previous page. The interest equals the principal times the rate times the time in years. So the principal here is $100 because that's how much he originally borrowed. So I equals 100, that's the principal. We also know the rate, 5%. To write the rate as a decimal, that's going to be 0.05, not 0.5. Don't make that mistake. And then the time in years is 1 year. So times 1. Now when we multiply all those together, we get the interest equals 5. 100 times 0.05 times 1 gives us 5. So that is the interest he is going to have to pay. But the problem is asking what will be the total amount that Tim will owe his parents in 1 year. So we want to know the balance. So the balance, we have to find the total. The principal is $100 plus $5. So the balance is $105. He owes his parents that much after 1 year. All right, let's set up 3 more examples and then we'll be done here. For number 1, I want to find the interest and the balance if we have the principal of $50, 2% interest for 3 years. So I equals PRT, and we just have to substitute. I equals 50 times 0.02 times 3. And when we calculate that, we get I equals 3. So there's our interest, and now we just have to find our balance. 50 plus 3 gives us $53. So that is the final amount, the balance. Example 2, we're going to do a very similar way. I equals P times R times T. So I equals 4,880. Our rate here is 3.8%. If we move that 2 places to the left, that'll be 0.038. And now, this is kind of tricky here. 3 months. It doesn't give it to me in years. I'm not going to do times 3. I want to multiply by how many years that is. But that's not even a full year. But I know there's 12 months in a year, so we'll say 3 out of 12. So we actually have a fraction here. Once I multiply those 3 numbers together, even with the fraction, 4,880 times 0.038 times 3 over 12, I get 46.36. And then I just have to add that to the original amount. And that gives me $4,926.36. So this is the new balance that we have after we add the interest. Now, for example 3, same type of process. I equals 1,800 times 13.5% is going to be 0.135 times, we have 4 months here. Once again, not a full year. So we're going to have to make this multiply by a fraction of a year, 4 over 12. Once we do that calculation, we get the interest equals 81. So there's our interest. And now to find the balance, we just have to do 1,800 plus 81, which gives us $1,881. And that is our balance after gaining this much interest. There's our final amount. All right, that's our last example for tonight. You can go ahead and finish up your notes, and don't forget to submit it through Canvas. I will see you guys in class.